And we are live. We are live. So we're going live on three places: the Shrine of Ma'at Facebook page, the Shrine of Ma'at Comedic Legacy Today's page, and um, the YouTube page for the Shrine of Ma'at.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, right. Yeah, two Facebook pages and a YouTube page.
Okay.
So welcome, welcome. We have people joining in. Thank you for your patience and coming in at this hour. I appreciate it. Thank you for waiting. We had some technical difficulties with Dr. Falou. She is fine, but there was an emergency at her foundation, and we just weren't able to make that happen technologically, but she will be back, and we will be recording, not recording, airing live with the topic that we had the flyer was on. Okay. So we will have our interview with Dr. Falou. Tonight, I bring you a very special guest. She is from Connecticut. That's why she's so gorgeous. That's how we make them in Connecticut. I'm just playing. She is gorgeous. Wasn't kidding about that part. She's my Spellman sister, and she also practices African spirituality. And having someone who is in close proximity with me and discussing it, and as my Spellman sister, is something that I hold very dearly, and I don't take it lightly. And I really appreciate the fact that this woman exists on the planet and is so close to me in proximity. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Miss Anika Cazenave. Hey, Anika.
Good evening, everyone. Blessings. It's really good to be here. Sai, you are definitely one of one of my favorite people. And I'm glad that we're in close proximity as well because um the majority of my practice community is outside of this region. So to be
Right.
able to talk to somebody and have somebody that can bounce things off of that's so close is really refreshing for me and helpful for me. Um so uh I've been a practitioner of various systems of African spirituality for pretty much the entirety of my adult life. Um, I am what people would refer to as a hoodoo, um, or a conjure woman. That is the earliest system, the first system that I was introduced to. And I have an ancestral introduction to that as a child. Um, One of my earliest memories was being 7 years old, on my front porch in Philadelphia because I grew up in so I grew up in Philadelphia. I'm originally from New Orleans, and then I moved to Connecticut in high school. And so I was in Philadelphia at the time. I was 7 years old, and I heard in my head, "Go pick up that brick. Pick up those pieces of brick." So I picked up the piece of brick. And I said, start drawing stars and crosses and circles and various things on my porch. So I was drawing all sorts of stuff on my porch. And I remember my mother came out to see what I was doing. And she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm drawing stuff on the porch." And she asked me, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "To protect the house." And she was like, so she just kind of looked at me. She was quiet. And she said, "Okay." And then she went back in the house. Now, my mother's from Texas. My father's from Louisiana. Um, and I didn't know what I was, but I was led to do it. And I did it because I could tell that whoever was speaking was trying to help me. So, that was one of my earliest memories. And later on, as I got older and through actual study of root work and conjure and hoodoo, I found out that people protect their homes with red brick dust.
Oh, wow.
Yes. One of the ways that you can protect your home is grind up red brick and sprinkle the dust around the windowsills and the door sills. Um, so the fact that I had been led to do that by spirit at such a young age um, was an indication that this was definitely a significant part of my journey. And then and there's all sorts of I can tell many anecdotes like that. Certain things that happened to me when I was 11. I had a major what I would refer to as an initiatory or an awakening experience.
Mhm.
One of the things about conjure is that people like to say that it's not an initiatory tradition. That's not altogether true, but it is unlike other African spiritual systems. Conjure does have spiritual initiations, just have
Mhm.
initiations by the spirits themselves.
Now,
Um,
Anika, I just want to jump in and ask a couple things.
sure.
First, I'm going to say I've never heard that story about the spirit speaking to you with the brick. I've never heard that story, and I've heard some of her stories, and I never heard that one. That's pretty cool. The other thing is, so your mom is from Texas and your dad is from
Mhm,
Louisiana. That's the
mhm.
opposite of Beyonce's parents. That's what I was
Well, I
thinking.
think her father's from Alabama and her mom's from Louisiana, but yeah.
Oh, see, I
Mhm.
done messed up the verse. Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Uh, so, can you explain, just so everybody knows, what is conjure, what goes into that, and also what is hoodoo, and how is that different from voodoo or anything else, and where is it rooted?
Okay. So hoodoo is so a lot of people have familiarity with African diasporic and African traditional religions. So with regard to, for example, the diaspora, there's Vodun, there is Lukumi, there's Candomblé, there's Shango Baptist, there's Palo Mayombe, um, and there's Hoodoo. Um, the systems that I named first um, have largely Caribbean um, kind of, I don't want to say origins, but they developed in the Caribbean um you know, through the Middle Passage, through the Maafa. Hoodoo developed in the United States
That's
through
right.
the Maafa. Lukumi, Candomblé, you know, Vodou, those systems were syncretized with Catholicism. Hoodoo has very Protestant syncretism. So when we think about people catching the spirit in the Black church, and when we talk about the ring shouts for Gullah Geechee people, and we talk about um, spirit possession, all of those things go together. Okay, so instead of being like Lukumi, where the Orisha were syncretized with the saints, in Hoodoo, the deities were oftentimes referred to in similar ways as folk figures. We have, for example, like if you want to think about John Henry, if you want to think about Crossroads Man, you want to think about Black Hawk. These are all spiritual entities that are worked in Hoodoo. Crossroads Man is the keeper of the crossroads and occupies a similar position as Papa Legba or Elegua does in Vodou and Lukumi, respectively. John Henry would occupy a similar position as Ogun or Ogufele. Um, Black Hawk is a whole different entity all on his own, and you don't even find Black Hawk in all of Hoodoo. You have find Black Hawk specifically in Louisiana Hoodoo. Um, and he was introduced by Mother Leafy Anderson. She was a spirit that she worked with. Um, so, you know, and she was one of the founder of the Spiritualist Church. So, Spiritualist churches do a lot work with conjure and hoodoo. Conjure is a practice within hoodoo. Conjure is the the act of um communicating with the spirits, with the ancestors, and with the spirits of nature that we find. Um, so somebody asked, why is it so hard to find a legit practitioner that will help you find your way? Because we live in a Eurocentric capitalist society where people want to commodify spirituality.
Straight
Um,
like that. Straight like that. It's that simple. You
and
know,
people want to take advantage of it and make money off of it.
I saw her comment, and that is something that Anika and I have talked about. Like, we'll go to the park, do some yoga, burn some incense, some sage, read some cards and talk about that. Like, why? And so while it's hard to find someone, it's also easy to find. You can find someone through the right sources. You can, all of my guests are vetted who come on Tuesday Talk. If you have access to any of these guests, they can guide you to find, a practitioner. I'm sorry, someone who can lead you so that you can learn and you can become a practitioner. As you all know, I'm a priestess in the Shrine of my aunt. We practice Kemetic spirituality. But what Anika and I are also going to get into later on is African spirituality is the spirituality of Africans, it is the African mind, and any group dynamic continues to produce pretty much the same thing. And so, other forms of spirituality call people, and the overlap and the similarity is way more similar than different. So if you need some help finding someone to help you, you can DM the Shrine of my eye and I'll get it. Okay. Because trust, I understand, girl. Ain't nothing like trying to find your spiritual get your African mind back, your African spiritual self back, and you keep finding the wrong folks. It's very frustrating. But I can help you find what you need. Mm-hmm.
The other thing I would say is also discernment is key, and trusting your personal, what I like to refer to as spiritual GPS, your ancestors, your guides. Being able to quiet yourself and still yourself long enough through meditation to be able to hear your internal guidance. They will not steer you wrong. They will tell you this person is okay, this person is not. And you need, and being able to trust that guidance. It may be a while before you are brought to someone who is legitimate, but they will definitely guide you away from those who are not.
Anika touched on something that is very impactful, and it goes beyond just trusting yourself to know that you can find the right guide. It's trusting yourself. Hard stop. So when you meditate, when you eat right, when you fast and detox, etc., and get on a good sleep wake cycle and all of those things, you hear stuff. And over time, you will be able to know the difference between your conscience, which is you telling yourself to stop doing what you're not supposed to do, and your ancestors, and the Neteru or the divine or the Orishas, whichever practice you use. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So when I first came into this type of a practice, I was like, how you going to tell all that just from what's in your head? Like, I believed it. I just didn't understand it. It didn't make sense that you could have that much discernment. But let me tell you something. You can feel the difference. You know it. Just like you watching this, you know it.
Absolutely.
You know it. And part of that is sometimes you are praying and you're speaking to the Neteru. You're speaking to the divine. And you understand that the divine is also within you. And so that exchange, man, I'm telling you, like, you'll know. And then there are times when you're calling on the Neteru, which is Kemetic, or the Orishas, or other, I don't know all the other parallel words, but just the aspects, the principles of nature that our people recognize. You'll be able to call on that. You're in that particular zone. And then sometimes you are working on yourself and you're having a conversation with yourself. And once you're able to trust yourself first, like what Anika said, you'll be able to make those discernments.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
And
she
you
says,
know,
right,
for me, hmm
I just want to say this one thing. Nez said, I've meditated and seen myself like a higher self dressed in blue and white.
okay, that's interesting.
It's interesting. Blue and white.
hmm Blue and
Hmm.
white. That's interesting.
Yes.
Um, I think and that and to be honest, that could actually, that could be reflective of a lot of different entities. So I wouldn't really want to speak on that.
Hmm.
One of the things that we do in various African spiritual and African diasporic spiritual systems is divination. Um, the Orisha have particular ways that they speak. The Loa have particular ways that they speak. The Mpungo, which are the divine entities in Palo, have particular ways that they speak. Um, my hoodoo spirits, they have particular ways that they speak to me. My ancestors speak in particular ways, and I can distinguish between my the spirits in hoodoo that I have contracts with, pacts with, and my ancestors. um I can distinguish between which ancestors are speaking. My mother is an ancestor, Ibaye. And I know my mother's voice, my mother still calls me in the same voice that she spoke with when she was alive. I can still hear her voice. And the energy, my mother is undeniably recognizable to me. My grandmothers, I know them. My great grandfathers, my great grandmother, I mean, like all of my ancestors, they have different voices, and I know who each one of them is. And as new, and it's a lifelong process, and as new ones start coming forward, because you have to think about it, we start with what is closest to us, and
That's right.
oftentimes we move back.
That's
So I
right.
have ancestors from the continent whose voices I know because they have shown themselves to me, they have
Mm,
revealed themselves to me.
girl. Ooh,
um and so I can distinguish them from other ancestors and from other entities that I have pacts with. um oh, okay. um
so Anika,
and
I want to
mhm,
jump in and say this.
sure. Okay.
Girl, I have become more in contact with my ancestors where I just
Mhm,
pray to them and talk to them
mhm,
and give offerings to them and want to hear them, you know. And I did a one of the tests to find the first through my matrilineal lineage, the lineage of my
mhm.
mothers,
Right.
to see which ethnic group or African group the very first woman from the continent was stolen, who was stolen in my lineage, or I'm in her
Mhm,
lineage.
mhm,
So one day I'm at my altar and I'm talking to the ancestors and wishing them peace and asking for them to speak to me and things like that. And I mentioned and I said, and I want to connect with the woman in my lineage, the first woman who was stolen from the continent. I
mhm,
had a vision of this woman being taken, and I had a feeling that came over me that almost knocked me over.
mhm. Yeah.
Like it was I had to like stop because I got a little scared. I ain't gonna lie.
Right. Yeah.
Got a little
Okay.
scared. And
Right.
I was like, oh my God. So this is real stuff we're dealing with here. Because as a black person growing up, we don't think, and when I say black, I mean Pan African black around around the globe. We don't think who was the first woman, who was the original woman in my lineage who was snatched. Who is that? How many times have
Mhm.
we taught? How are we in a mental space to even think about that?
Right.
But I thought about that woman, and I almost listen. This is real stuff. I had to stop it because it was a little scary. So I've definitely like been thinking you got to go back to that space and find out who this woman is
Right.
because
Right.
so what I've done is I would pray to the ancestors. I pray to ancestors like like Malcolm X, like people who are everybody's ancestors who we never met
Community
because
ancestors.
they were right community ancestors. They were our ancestors before we passed. I prayed to the ancestors who helped me, who at the Artist Collective in Hartford when I went through Yabo, which was the rites of passage when I was 7. And there's I have ancestors from them that are recent. I'm getting chills talking about it right now. Then I said, I'm praying to the ancestors unknown who white man's history doesn't record these people.
Right.
But they existed because I'm here. As a matter of fact, that's something I say in the morning when I'm pouring libations for my ancestors. We have ancestors, not different types, but they were in different spaces. The ones we know who we never met, our relatives who we didn't meet, our relatives who we know. We have our ancient ancestors who wrote on the walls in Kemet. We have the original man and the original woman who were snatched from Africa, and the union that they made gave us, we here. Okay, so the ancestors who were in the Middle Passage, who drowned, who died, who were tortured, who are unnamed in white man's history, I've been connecting with them because people don't know their names, and we probably won't ever, but they were people, and they need to be recognized as people who fought enough for us to be in their lineage, because without them, we wouldn't be here. So, I just wanted to kind of break down how you can connect with your ancestors.
Absolutely. So, I am a Vodun practitioner, and the Gede are, that's who they represent, is those ancestors whose names have been lost to history, but still should be and are recognized.
Can you spell that?
And I I think that one of the things that people, I'm gonna kind of switch tacks a little bit. A lot of times when people get into in spirituality, they're really kind of, they're interested in the Orisha, or they're interested in the Neteru. They're interested in the deities of these systems. But I think people need to know that everything starts with the ancestors. All of these practices, you have to honor your ancestors first before you go to any other level. Because for a few reasons. One of them is that they are the closest to us. They are and so if you think about like the planes of existence, the ancestral plane of existence is the one that is closest to the earthly plane of existence. The other thing about it is that I know that in quite a few of the ancestral the African traditions, the divine entities, many of them, not all, but many of them are deified ancestors. And so it is entirely possible, and it is part of what we strive for in terms of having good character and living in balance and in harmony with the energies on this plane, is to be able to be a deified ancestor, or to join our energy with those energies upon transitioning. I'm not going to really go too much further into that, but I will say this: if you think about it, it's levels to this, like we like to say, it's levels to this.
Right.
And so we have to move through the levels, and we have to be mindful that you can't bypass levels. You can't, because I mean, it's all interconnected. It all they're all interconnected, and so in order to have a balanced practice, we have to acknowledge those who came before us.
That's right.
And you hear a lot today about healing the lineage, breaking generational curses. A lot of people in the spiritual community, in general, are talking about these things, and I think it's very good to talk about. But I think that as things become popular, they become very surface.
Right.
And so people don't really understand that what it means to actually break a generational curse or to heal your lineage. Um, that takes a lot. It takes transforming your thought, your behaviors. It takes, the ritual and the acts of doing the spiritual healing for yourself and your ancestors and for your lineage. Um, and walking in that healing. I think it's really easy to say, oh, I'm gonna light this candle, I'm gonna do this work, I'm gonna get these herbs, and I'm gonna do this ritual, and now we're healed. You got to walk in that. You have to decolonize your mind, you have to
Right.
decolonize your practice, you have to decolonize your life in order to actually break those curses. So
Facts. And to speak on that, to break a curse, where did the curse come from? It came from colonization. It came from the European invasion. So,
exactly.
absolutely 100% of everything or anything that you do, and me too, that did not come from our ancestors came from the European. And I'm going to tell you why. Because it isn't like, the ideology just stayed with the European. It's everybody thinks this way. So you might have gotten something from a parent or grandparent that they got from the enslaver, like, oh, I don't know, chitlins. Now, for those of you who follow me, you know how I don't be playing with pork and chitlins. And I had some people on that was actually a separate Tuesday talk. I have family members who justify eating chitlins. That part of their mind has not been decolonized because
Hmm.
when we read the sacred text in the shrine of my aunt, there is text before the Bible, before Judaism, before Islam. Okay, our sacred text in Kemetic spirituality stated not to eat the pig, not to touch pig,
Hmm.
not even to
Hmm.
associate with people who grow pigs or who herd them
Hmm.
and breed them or whatever. Not even the
Hmm.
people who do that. Don't even marry those people. So
Hmm.
we made it very clear what to do with that pig, and that was to leave that pig alone. So if you
Hmm.
are justifying eating it after someone has told you, then your mind is not open to the decolonization. So therefore, the curse becomes something that it manifests as something unhealthy. It manifests as something
Well,
tangible.
let me say something. Let me say this.
Mhm.
I think one of the things that we need to remember though is that there are because of the size of the continent, different people have different ways of doing things, and that there are people who have actually traced the eating of chitlins past colonization to actual African practices.
Oh, please, please don't tell me that.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
no, no, man.
yes. So what I
Really.
so what I'm saying is this is Um, and to be honest, one of the things that we give I give my ancestors what they ate, okay? Because I'm a diasporan. I give them what they ate. And there are some deities that will take pork. And I will give them that. And I dare anyone to say that Dantor is colonized.
Who's
Elderly
Don
Danto
Tolles?
is not a colonized entity.
What's this? So explain to us what that is.
Elderly Danto is a Loa in Haitian Vodou.
Mm-hmm.
And she is the Loa one of the Loa that was invoked in the ritual of Bois Caiman. And the ritual of Bois Caiman was what basically kicked off the Haitian Revolution.
Speak that, girl.
So Danto, um, she eats le cochon. She eats le cochon noir. She eats black pig, but she also prefers le cochon blanc. But that's a whole different conversation. Um, but uh Danto, and she's very, 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 very fiery. She has her own energy, her own way of doing things, her own manner of communicating, just like all of the Loire have their own manner of communicating.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not a colonized entity. I would not ever say, okay, this is a colonized entity, but she takes le cochon. Okay. And you have people in Africa. Even if the Kemetic people did not, there are other people who did. And I'm not going to paint everybody the same way. And I'm not going to say everybody has to do the same thing. Okay. Me personally, a lot of my people, a lot of my I guess I would say mid-range ancestors. My mid-range ancestors were Muslim. You know, I come from Louisiana originally, and a lot of those people were from Mali and Senegal, and a lot of those people were Muslim.
Mhm.
So I have ancestors that take pork. I got ancestors that don't. I got ancestors that have certain insistence upon my practice being a certain way based upon Islamic principles, but also in combination with the indigenous African traditions. So I
Mhm.
think um, I caution people from necessarily trying to over purify, because the thing about Africans is, first of all, everything comes from us in the first place, number one. And number two, we are very, 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 very adaptable, and we are very resourceful. And we take whatever is given to us and we make gold out of it.
That's a fact. You know what? I do remember. I'm glad you brought this up. I personally wouldn't. I ain't eating no pork, but I'm glad that you brought this up because you made a couple of good points. First of all, a Boots shot does not know everything. That's number one. Number two, different diaspora, different Africans on, and we're just talking continental, did
Mm-hmm.
things differently, and
Yeah.
we talked about how the overlap and the significance and the similarity is much more. There's much more similarity than difference, and really the difference is just a different way based upon a different part of the continent. I
Right.
do remember Anika was you had a plate of offerings to the ancestors, and it was pork or was it chitlins? It was something, and I
It was,
was
it was,
like,
if it was New Year's, it was chitlins because I make them for my dad, and that's I don't eat them myself, but I make them for my father.
and I was like, chitlins for the ancestors. But see, I know Anika, and so I knew she knew what she was doing, even though I didn't know what she was doing. And so for me, my mind is made up until you give me some new information. I don't have a closed mind. I have a made up mind, which means I'm gonna make a decision based upon what I have and what I know. So if you got something to say, and I know you know what you're talking about, I want to hear what it is. And I forgot about that offering. Didn't you show it on Facebook? Did you show
Yeah,
it on
I think I
Facebook?
did. I think I did.
Yeah.
And this is now I do want to be clear about this. You don't
Uh-huh.
give that to everybody. You give,
Right.
if you got, Uncle Bubba who has passed on, and you need Uncle Bubba to do something for you, you give Uncle Bubba what Uncle Bubba eats. But if you got, Mansa Musa from however many long years ago, which, you give him what he eats.
Right.
it's
Right.
it's so it's about working with the entity that that you need at the time. So
Right.
I'm not saying that we should, and I'm also not saying that we should wholesale consume certain things ourselves, because for example, like I don't consume alcohol, but I have spirits that do. I don't consume tobacco, but I have spirits that do, you know so these are not things that I will engage in myself,
Mhm.
but some entities require them in order for them to be activated. So I would never, I don't want to tell anybody, well, you should go out and get you a plate of chitlins, because I'm not going to do that. But I will say that if Aunt May Bell comes to you and says, I'm about to hook you up with a whole bunch of money, but I need you to smother me some pork chops, well, I think you should go to the store and smother Aunt Maybelle some pork chops.
I'm gonna call you. I don't know how to cook pork chops. I'll be like, Nika, I'm about to get me this money right quick. This money. So yes, but just so that we're very clear, what Anika is saying is different in brief summary, um, ancestors, we have ancestors from different parts of the continent. Different parts of the continent had slightly different, diets and ways to live, just to be general. So when
Mm-hmm.
your ancestor from one part of the continent is speaking to you, or your ancestor from, your great great grandmother that you knew, they require different things, and each of them could be different, and each of them could be something that you yourself would not consume, or you can self you yourself
Exactly.
it's not a part of what you do. You know what I'm saying? But give your ancestors what they need.
Exactly.
Feeding, yeah, okay, good. Working your altar, feeding, leaving the offerings for the ancestors. We didn't just make this up today, yesterday, 100 years ago,
Nope.
200 years ago. We have proof. We have proof of offerings that are older than certain races of people. There was just Africans on the planet giving offerings. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that and before I was able to find this, I always wanted to find that space, because if you have the divine and you have the first people who are my ancestors, there's nothing in between them but the truth. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing in between them but pure divinity. Okay, so understand that what Anika is saying is we're trying to go back to that space and work with those ancestors who had that kind of interaction and their practices, and we tap into that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other thing is, if you're from the Americas, many different ethnic Africans and tribal Africans, they mixed our ancestors up on purpose.
Yes. Yes.
Different parts of the
Change,
country. Right. So we
so that they could
have,
understand each other, so that they could not rebel.
right,
That was deliberately done in order to discourage rebellion.
to make it impossible. Because how you going to agree
Mm-hmm.
on something if you speak different languages? But to round out this point, that is why we have different ways to connect to our ancestors. And personally, I believe that's why I know, let me speak for myself. I have interests in all African spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
I want to learn and be able to practice Vodun as well, and Hoodoo as a foundational Black American with all four of my grandparents foundational Black American. I want to know what Hoodoo is.
Mm-hmm.
I have roots in Georgia. I got roots in North Carolina and Virginia. That's deep, especially that Georgia. Okay. So if you're listening and you're watching and Ifa calls you, Kemetic spirituality calls you, um, something else calls you, part of that could be that ancestor in you who practiced that.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And you feeling
Yes.
that.
Yeah, I definitely like my lineage goes basically through the passage of time back. So my practice goes through the passage of time
Mm-hmm.
back. It does not, like I know that people are called into systems and traditions based upon their lineage. And I know for a lot of us that are African Americans, um, we are oftentimes asked by our ancestors to practice multiple traditions for that reason, because we've got, Yoruba ancestors and Congo ancestors and Senegalese ancestors and, and Ghanaian ancestors, because we have, and, actually, you know what? Yoruba, Dahomey, Fon, Arara, Eve. Okay, let's call them by the names that they use. Nago, actually, Anago, um, you know, Bakongo. These are the people and the names that they use for themselves, and to know that we have multiple of those groups within our ancestry as a result of the Ma'afa and the deliberate mixing, separation and mixing of people. um, we're oftentimes asked by those ancestors to practice their traditions, and it's a balancing act. Um, so I think that, and that's one of the reasons why in most, I dare say all African traditional and African diasporic traditional religions that say start with the ancestors. That's why, because they are your guide. They are going to tell you this is the space you need to be in. This is not the space you need to be in. If you are a Khan and your ancestry is primarily a Khan and Ewe, and you go over here and you want to practice an Orisha tradition, it may not be for you. It may be that your ancestors are like, no, we want you over here. We don't want you over here with Shango. We want you over here with Hevioso, because they want you in the tradition of their lineage. And so one of the things that needs to happen is people need to understand that before they initiate, before they jump feet first, divination has to occur. Divination, 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 divination. Find out if that's where you're supposed to be. Because everything ain't for everybody.
So, can you? This is a tricky question. It's not really tricky. I'm going to ask it, and then you let me know what we can
Okay.
share. Because when we talk
Mm-hmm.
about initiation and spiritual practices, there's some stuff we can say that's general, and some
Right.
stuff that we can't say. So,
Mm-hmm.
can you give us a general breakdown of hoodoo, and then a general breakdown of the conjure that's in hoodoo?
Okay, so hoodoo is an African American Congo, heavily Congo, also with Igbo aspect tradition. It has aspects from other African ethnicities, but it is very, very heavily Congo based because a significant portion of the population that was brought to the United States have Congo ancestry. It is syncretized through um a lot of Protestant Christian practice, not exclusively. In Louisiana, you'll find Catholic syncretism. You'll also find Muslim syncretisms that run through hoodoo. Um, so, like most African traditional and African diasporic religions, hoodoo is resourceful and used what was there in order to preserve the spiritual connection. Um, Conjure is connecting with spirits. Root work is connecting with herbs. Um, and there's some people, you have what's called, so you have a root worker, a conjure person, and a two-headed person. Conjure person will actually work with the spirits that are around. The root worker will work with the herbs and the plants that are around. And the two-headed person is the person that sees the past and the future. Okay, so everybody kind of has a specialty. Some people got more than one, but if when you come into hoodoo, oftentimes you'll see that you'll got the two-headed woman over there, and she's the one that has the dreams. And she's the one that tells you what any dreams that you have may mean. You got the conjure person over there. Now the conjure person, they'll start talking to all the spirits, in the area, and they'll make the pacts with those spirits. And then you'll have the root worker, and the root worker goes in, and that root worker can talk to the plants, and those plants will do whatever they want. I'm simplifying, of course, and generalizing, but um when you talk to the various natural elements, including the spirits, it's a two-way communication. They talk back. Um, Let me see if I can show you something real quick. I don't know if I can show this because I'm trying to see. I don't know if I can show the forward facing camera, but I'm gonna take this off of my my ring light for a minute. So I want to show you something. See, can you see the plants?
Listen, I was gonna say, y'all don't know what's in Anika's house right next to her. I've been up in there, so I know. It's a the whole apartment is an altar, y'all. So she
It
showed
is.
y'all a snippet. Trust.
Yeah. And those are some of the plants, and those plants, they all, even the ones that don't seem to be obviously spiritual, are all spiritual. They all have a function. There's a prayer plant, there's a golden pothos are for organization. The peace lily, there's a lemon tree, there's rue. Gotta have rue. Rue is good for breaking hexes, curses, binds, and jinxes. um So there's always something, and so, but here's the thing, most of these plants have multiple uses. So if I'm gonna, as they say in hoodoo, lay a trick, and I need to access the plant, well, I can use the same plant to lay two different, completely different tricks, but I got to communicate it. What do I want this plant to do at this particular point? What does it need to do? You know, I can use, yeah, what, do I need this to do something, to bring me in something? Do I need to use this something to usher something out? You So big part of the work is to communicate with whatever it is you're working. If I'm communicating with spirits that I have pacts with, different ones will do different things, but some of them will do multiple things. So what do I need that particular spirit to do at this time? What do I need? Um, if I talk to Black Hawk, for example, Father Black Hawk, if I need Father Black Hawk to do something, Father Black Hawk is very, very protective. He protects my home. He protects me. He protects my child. Um, but I may also need him to do something else. Crossroads man. If I go to the crossroads and I have to talk to there's a lot of things I can ask crossroads man to do. I can ask him to bring something in. I can ask him to take something out. I can ask him to open a door. I can ask him to close it. I can ask him to open a door for somebody else and close it for somebody else. So there's a whole lot, but you have to be very clear. When people talk about being clear in your intentions, you have to be very clear. And you also have to be in alignment with your purpose. For me, for a long time, I've been doing this like I tell people, I've been doing this for a long time. Like I said at the beginning, I've been doing this most of my life, but I was not always comfortable with it. And I was always not always comfortable with being open with it. But it's such a huge part of who I am that that at this point it is in alignment with my purpose to be open. So when people come to me and they want root work done or they want a reading done, you know who you're talking to. So
Listen, I've been friends with Anika for a minute, and she's saying some stuff I ain't never heard before. I'm gonna ask her why. Like, yo, you've been holding out on me. Listen, she's giving you stuff that is going to have to settle. Meaning you're gonna have to sit with it. When you hear ways to access different levels of spirituality, your culture, your ancestry, what you would have been doing but for my alpha, we would already know this but for that. Okay? So it is unlocking one of the barriers to you being you. You're going to have to sit with it. All right? I would look at this video. I'm going to look at this video again, and I'm in the video. All right? So when this is done, you can find it on whichever platform you're on. You can find it on the Shrines YouTube page, the Shrines Facebook page, or Comedic Legacy Today's Facebook page. And it's worth it to sit and watch again. Some of y'all tell me you've watched it again, and I really am appreciative of the support that I've gotten, especially this year. I'm glad I'm bringing you guys guests that, give you what you need. And all of these Tuesday talks give people what they need. If this is something that you want to sit with because she's explained different things, that's absolutely what I would do. Watch it again, share it. A lot of y'all watch and share and bring to other people, which is because y'all be giving me that kind of feedback. So I'm making that suggestion here because a lot of you are saying she's breaking it down. So that means that this is something new for you, or maybe it's just coming to you in different levels that you haven't had before. So that's just my suggestion for that. So let me ask you this. So first off, thank you for that explanation, and you've got the person who can see the future and the past, the root worker and the conjure worker. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. The different three. And in order for that to be for you to be able to access this, is you have to be very clear of your intentions, and you must walk in your purpose. Mm-hmm. It can be difficult sometimes for some people to be clear in their purpose and clear in their intentions and walk in your purpose. Might I add, be clear about what it is you want. A lot of times when we come to this, we want everything right now. So you got to be more specific than that. And I know that was kind of how I was when I found Kemetic spirituality. And when you find Kemetic spirituality, you're able to recognize things that have been around you the whole time that you didn't know. It can be overwhelming. And I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. I was kind of mad. Like it took me this long to find this, and I'm a grown woman. And then you want to be like, man, I wish I had known this when I was 8. And then you're like,
Mhm.
you got to let that go. You got to let that go because you can't be 8 again and know it at 8.
And
Okay.
I dare say everything happens in its time. And there's a divine timing at work. And I think that sometimes we want to we think again, decolonization, we think linearly because we have been instructed to think linearly. We've been
Mhm.
instructed to think from a linear European perspective. But divine timing does not work that way, particularly divine timing from an African standpoint. So we have to realize that things happen when they're supposed to, how they're supposed to.
And one of the things that I know, to kind of go off of what Anika just said, when you're embracing African spirituality, what you have to work on is what's going to be your biggest annoyance.
Woo,
I had to work on my patience and
woo.
my temper. And so when I found this or came across it, I was pissed. It took forever. I was looking for this at Spelman.
Mhm.
Didn't know it was all around me. So now I find it now and I want to know everything right now.
Mhm.
That's not how that works. So when you come across something, when you're introduced to an element of African spirituality and you have an inclination to do whatever that is what you have to work on because it's going to take time and you need patience and consistency and dedication. And whatever frustrates you about the process is something that you have to work on within yourself. And that is what's blocking you from from making that shift to be able to absorb whatever information you need to give you the experiences and the knowledge that you're seeking. It took me a little bit to figure that out. And as a priestess in the shrine of Ma'at, I have access to Anika and Jabari, and plus I've known them since I was friends with them first, and so they know my patience needed work. I needed to work on my patience, and so as friends and as the high priestess and priest, they made sure that I had to work on my patience. And
You
so,
know,
go
no,
ahead, go
it's
ahead.
just, I think it's just so funny because you called me and asked me to do this.
Mhm.
And the thing for me to work on is I hide. I like to play the background. I don't like to be out front. I don't like to be on camera. I don't like to teach. Um, I wanna sit with my herbs and my roots and my crystals and at my altars and talk to my spirits, but I don't want to talk to anybody else about this. So you called me today because my spirits have been telling me that I need to get out front and start talking. And here I am.
And listen, like I said, Anika and I hang out, we be on the phone, we FaceTime, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of this stuff I ain't never heard before. Anika, you been holding out. So when she's telling you that she's in the back, she stays there. But we're gonna pull her out because you see how well she explains everything. Okay. So I don't know exactly what your purpose is completely, but educating the people in a very clear and concise way, in a very loving, warm way, is definitely a part of that calling for sure.
Mm.
Definitely. I want to read some of these. Oh yes, oh yes. This comment with Shenka. She's a part of Kepru Rama'at, the initiate class from before the one
Mm.
that we have now. So
Mm.
yeah, her comment is the plants though, yes, they want to communicate. I have noticed this. I inherited my mother's plants and I believe she is communicating through
Yes.
them. They
Yes.
stand up at attention when I get home each day.
And speak to them and speak life into them. Speak life into those plants and they will bring life to you. And learn the different energies and the characters because when you talk to the plants and you touch them, they all have different, like everything has its own frequency. So, one plant might have this kind of energy and another has this kind of energy. So yes, definitely I would definitely say your mother is communicating through those plants. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes. Speak to the plants. When I have plants in the house and I do my clippings and replant them, and I go into a certain space and I bring my ankh and my candles and my incense and I set it all up and take the plants
Mm,
out, clip them, put them in water, do all of my stuff, and I
mm,
talk to the plants and stuff like that. And I have this great feeling and I just absolutely love it. And then you put them in the water, let them grow their roots, and the cycle continues. I was living in New York City, and I lived in many different places. This place where I lived was not the nicest. It wasn't. I was like, how did you get yourself into this situation?
mm. I think
So,
we all been there.
girl. So I decided that I was going to paint my room and use oh my God, the Container Store has I forget the name of it, but it's a shelving system, and I hooked up my room, right? I found out that my roommate was a hoarder, and it freaked me out. I'm like, how did you not know this? But whatever. Anyway, so I decided to buy some plants because I had the two biggest, brightest rooms, windows in all of Harlem, and I got all this glorious, amazing light.
Yes.
So I said, you know what? I'm about to get me two little plants and put them in the windows. And
Mm,
so I went to the Home Depot on 23rd and 6th, right?
mm,
Little babies. That was 2012. It's 2022. And so my father died in 2016. My father transitioned in 2016, and my grandmother bought me some plants.
mm,
So over the years of 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, I've had new clippings. I've given a few for gifts, and they've not died.
mm,
And so, girl, yes.
mm.
And so, more recently, some of my pathos have died. Not died,
Wow.
but I had to return them to the earth.
Okay.
And it made me sad because I remember these plants. These plants helped me get through that crazy apartment.
Yeah.
And those plants made me think about the rays of Ra that were shining into
Mm,
my room. And I appreciated that. And when
mm,
I would clean the apartment and clean my room and open my door and open the windows and the sun was shining in, I started to like my apartment.
mm.
So, girl, yes. So, more recently, 10 years later, I can tell the difference in the way they feel from the plants that my grandmother gave me to the plants that I had in 2012 that traveled with me through. So, all these apartments,
Mm,
these plants been with me, y'all. They've been with me.
mm,
So I more recently had to accept the fact that they were ready to go back to the earth. Geb was
mm,
asking for them. They had to go back. I didn't want them to go back, y'all. I really didn't. I was trying not to cry. Anyway, the plants are there for you in ways that you're not going to experience. You're not going to know until you get some plants and learn
right.
how to take care of them. And
Right.
at first, just like what Anika was saying, there's levels to it. First, it's how much water, how much light, how much food. But once you start loving on these plants and
Mm,
taking care of them, and giving and getting the life from them, and how it
mm,
opens up your space, and my next level is taking it into being conscious with the spirituality with the plants, because I
mhm,
was doing all of this before I was even initiated, before I even
mhm,
started praying Kemetically with my
mm,
plants. So I say all that to say this: as African people, the descendants of our ancestors, spirit is in everything. Spirit is not contained in a container and you put it on a shelf and then you go act a fool. You come back, you take down the spirit, and you be like, spirit, and you put it back. No, that's not how we do it. Everything we do has spirit, including plants.
yeah.
That is a the pathos plant is an an easier entryway into the plant life because it's relatively easy to take care of them. Now, I live in the Northeast, and it's on any given day it's cold. So
some days it's cold and hot depending upon the hour.
Girl, the minute.
Right, the minute.
It could be raining, snowing, it could be doing a whole lot of other stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look through some of these questions because we're going to come to a close pretty soon.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay,
is there a link? Because I want to share this on my page.
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
I'll send it to you on a Facebook page.
Well, actually, my Instagram.
Your Instagram.
Yeah. Because I'm gonna put. I got like 3 of those. I got like 3 Instagrams.
Oh yeah, your Instagram. So Facebook users
on my sister Aisha's page.
Okay.
Sister Aisha's Conjure.
Okay. There's a Facebook user that says, I'm very low key until asked. My plants love me and I love them. They bougie too. I have a fit when folks touch them. So this one has bougie plants. Sanjetti says there are medical documents such as the Ebers Medical Papyrus has recipes for formulas to address physical and spiritual ailments. Sanjetti was on before, who we did the 2 different Tuesday talks on cleansing.
Okay.
So yes. So I hope that I have answered all of your questions. I think I did because I was looking throughout while we were talking. So he said in Kemet, the Sanu and Saw priests were the root workers. All right. That's good to know. So guys, I just want to say, first off, thank you so much for supporting me with Tuesday Talk. I really appreciate the support and the comments that you guys, DM me and stuff like that. And you guys are sharing these Tuesday Talks with other people who are not even in African spirituality, and they're getting something out of it, is the feedback that I've gotten. I want to thank you for hanging in there with me. And starting an hour later, I had to get another person. And I said, I know too many people to just let this Tuesday go by, because Tuesday is for Tuesday Talk and not Tuesday not talk. Okay. So I called Anika, and she was half asleep. And she could turn it around. Anika got on the camera looking all good. So I just want to say thank you so much to my Spelman sister, my sister, and someone who I love and value. And I'm so glad that I'm on the journey on earth at the same time that she is, because it's a whole lot easier when you have somebody who you can talk to and they don't think you crazy. So thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you for coming on. And I'm really hoping that you're getting a lot out of this. And I will see you all next Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining. Shemem Atep, go forth in peace. Shemem Ma'at, go forth in balance.